Hello. So, this is a community competitive landscape where my goal in doing this was to study the community strengths of other similar and not so similar platforms and see what we can learn and fold into our community. And the goal for us is just to make sure that we have a community that's both welcoming and empowering. So looking at what other people are doing to create that effect is always very helpful. So when I'm thinking about a good community experience, I think of, especially on a platform where we're encouraging people to co-create, I think of it in these 5 phases. So first, you find the thing that solves your problem or tickles your fancy. Like it could be something like looking for photographs of flowers or bugs. And so that I call the discovery phase. The next step is to see other people who seem similar to you also using those resources. So that starts to feel like a bit more of a social experience. The next part is peer creation, where you see those people similar to you are also creating those resources that everyone is using. The next step above that is when you realize that you too can create those things. Like you feel like there's an invitation and a low barrier of entry to also contribute to this amazing resource that is useful. And then finally, the pinnacle is when you decide to actually share something and create something and contribute to that community. So this is actually just like an onboarding experience to become part of a collaborative, creative community. But loosely, this is how social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok work. You join, you look at the pretty things or the funny things, and you notice other people are making it. You notice they're similar to you. And if they can do it, why can't you? And it's so easy. So you also do it. But obviously, it's a social media platform, not a community. No one says, hey, I am part of the Instagram community. You become part of a community when there's something additional that starts to feel a little bit bigger picture. So when I think of an activity and a social activity, the point where it really starts to become a community is where there's a shared purpose. And so just to give an example, when I think of an activity, I could think of something like attending a class. Like the focus is on learning or doing something. The focus is on the activity. There just happen to be other people there with you, and you can rub elbows with them, you can chit chat with them, but it's not really about the people. It's about the thing that you're doing. So going to a wine tasting class would be an example of an activity. On the flip side, a social activity, the focus is on the social aspect, not so much the activity. So the example I would give there is going wine tasting with your family, or a group of friends. Like, it's not that your whole family and your group of friends are super into wine and you're doing it because it's the wine. It's just a thing to do that's social and kind of gives you an excuse or a common thing to do with the people you already care about and have relationships with. When you get into a community, you think of deliberately getting together with other people because of that shared purpose. So, in this Venn diagram, the equivalent of the examples I'd be giving is to join a wine tasting club. Like the purpose, like you're joining a club, a wine tasting club, just so you can hang out with people who are also interested in wine tasting, and you guys can taste wine and learn together and benefit from doing that as a social experience. It doesn't have to be people you already know. It doesn't have to be, it wouldn't be a club if you did it alone. It would be a failure as a club. So that's where I'm looking at a sense of community. So finally, when I evaluate a community, do I see people like me using the platform? Do I see people like me building things? Do I feel invited to contribute? And is there a shared purpose? Next, I'll go through the sites that I evaluated and what I found. The way I approached this is I looked at 12 different websites, and I not only looked at our direct competitors, but I looked at adjacent competitors. I don't really think of a community as competitive. No one really goes out there, except maybe in the NFT space, and goes out there and says, I'm going to find an awesome community to join. People go out there and find something that suits their purpose, and they stick around for the community. So in terms of our competitors, I didn't necessarily expect them to have really strong community. So I wanted to open up a little bit to look at similar or adjacent people, companies like Webflow in the no-code space, Airtable, Bubble, and then a couple that were a little bit more out there like GitHub that had a similar collaborative kind of community economy that weren't necessarily in the Web3 space like Boto is. And you can see that I graphed them according to how similar they were to Boto. So the higher they are on this dimension, the more similar they are to Boto. And so up here, you'll see our more direct competitors, Zapier, NAN, 3 commas, and Make. And then on this dimension, you'll see the community strength based on the criteria I outlined in the previous email. And so what's interesting to see is that the most direct competitors don't have a really strong community presence based on the objective criteria I laid out in the previous video. And then as you get further out, you'll see this vertical where Dune does a really good job, and they're kind of similar to Boto. They don't have bots or automations, so to speak, but they're more of like an analysis tool. And then GitHub is definitely not specific to Web3. It's not a bot tool, although there are bots in there, but it's a much broader repository of coding and a tool that people use for the revision history aspect of it that makes it really helpful. And so I see here that there's just a really big opportunity for Boto to be the platform in this space that has a strong community element. So let's take a closer look. Looking at the homepage, usually any standard homepage starts off outlining the product value, and I saw a couple of websites that did a really good job working in a community aspect to this. So Bubble at the top says the best way to build web apps without code, and what you'll see under their call to action button is just a quick little nod to their community. Join 2 million bubblers today and start building. That word join is very popular. The peer use is very strong with 2 million of them. The name bubblers just kind of gives you this little hint of community, because whenever you name yourselves in a way, you create kind of this group identity. GitHub does a really good job also. GitHub has a much stronger call of community from the outset. So where the world builds software, millions of developers, just like you. And then you'll see that they call out 83 million developers, 200 million repositories created by those developers. I think they really go all out to make sure that community has a very strong presence in their product, which is really nice. Glitch is very forward. I love the language that Glitch uses. They really go strong into the community sandbox aspect, and their words are just so friendly and inviting. Literally friendly. Everyone build, start, play. Let's go. When you say it all together like that, it feels a little bit much, but that's kind of like what they're doing. They're very much putting out there that they are a community and they want people to play with their friends. And then another cool thing that you can do as you're talking about the product is just add in little elements showing how other people, just like you, are using the product. And you can see, again, back to GitHub, you can see how they're doing it. They're kind of simulating this community experience with just a quick little screenshot. But it's really powerful, especially this isn't in real time, but just showing how it could be 8 minutes ago, someone else just participated in real time. The next thing that a couple of communities did really well was showcase community templates shortly, if not right after they described their product. This is especially relevant to us because the involvement and the contribution of the community at Boto is to share their bot recipes and create the world's biggest library of bots together. And so I was particularly interested in how some other communities put this front and center. Going back to Glitch, Glitch does a really good job because not only do they put the templates front and center, but you can see that it's actually real people just like me. It feels that way. Well, not just like me specifically, but the usernames look like real usernames. They don't look like staff people or canned, they don't look canned. They look like actual people participating on the internet. And so do the avatars. They're varied, they're kind of unique, they're a little bit quirky. And then if we look at the next example, Dune I love because when you go to the Dune homepage, you are landed right in the middle of that busy town square. Like that's all there is pretty much this whole page is dashboards, which are all templates that can be copied and modified and remixed. I love how forward they are. And because I wouldn't recommend this across the board, but it's a lot for someone who's a very beginner person. So you come to Dune and you have to already know a little bit about data analysis, and you have to be kind of asking these kind of more intermediate questions or advanced questions. So this is not overwhelming to their audience, I'm assuming, but I could see how this would be overwhelming to a very beginner-friendly community, which we're trying to be. But I love how forward they are with this. This is just, here you go. These are all the things that our community is building right now that you can build also. And then, let's see. So making these templates look nice is also a thing, like having nice pictures and being able to look at those. These are from Webflow, by the way. Being able to see what the product will look like, and also look how they're using the hearts and the copies just to show in a tiny but simple way that people are interacting with this and using these templates. There's activity there. There's people similar to me using these templates. The other thing a lot of websites did is that they had an explicit community invitation. It wasn't the very top, but it wasn't necessarily always the very bottom. Webflow does a really good job at this. They answer the question, why should I join this community? And they have a really good blurb, connect with 75,000 plus members, and they outline their mission. They tell you all the things you can do when you become a member of their community. Similarly, Bubble does the same thing, and they just break it out a little bit differently, but they have 4 different squares. They kind of show you what you get when you join their community. Something GitHub did that I really liked a lot is they showed how what their community does helps people. These little hearts, even though they're not intended to show, they're more about their sponsor aspect. I thought they created a really good feeling on this section of the page. And then just this idea of like that open source code you wrote for yourself might just help someone else. I think that's a really, really good call out that I didn't see used enough about how your contribution to the community really helps this broader community that you're a part of. So that was my 3-part analysis. Thank you for tuning in. I would love to hear any examples you have of communities anywhere in the related space that are doing something really cool in inviting people to participate in their community. Have a good one.